What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Noe Valente here once again with a Mean Green show. Today, joined by Matthew Brune, and we're going to jump into a little bit of North Texas expectations and what do we think is going to shake out for this football season. But before we get into all of that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. Matthew, thank you for coming on. It's that time of the year for a Brune's breakdown here to get your scoop. But most importantly, congratulations on getting your box. You and Colin, that was a big
We did.
move. That was a big
We did.
move.
It's in my closet right now, but I got the shirt on.
That's
I got
right.
the
That's
shirt on.
right.
I was like, Colin and I would text about it. We were like, man, it's all these people getting them, and it's like, do we just like make a joke out of it on the podcast? You're like, yeah, let's do it. So we're like, all right, I'll just start yelling. We'll
The,
get.
it was a media blitz. I think you pushed Taylor's hand pretty hard there to get
Yeah,
it
we
out,
did.
but
We did. It was hilarious.
that was good. Okay, man. So just kind of piggybacking off of media day. So North Texas was picked to go 7-7 and finish seventh out of 14 of the 14 new AAC members, kind of right in the middle, something we're kind of accustomed to,
Hmm.
I suppose, coming from Conference USA. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that prediction is a little generous? Do you think it's maybe underwhelming, or I mean, what are your thoughts there as far as the projected seventh place finish in the American Conference?
Yeah, a few things. First, we had on an AAC kind of college football writer from the Underdog Dynasty a few weeks ago. I thought he gave really good synopsis of the North Texas schedule and the teams that we don't know much about, like a Temple, Navy, Tulsa to a degree. And it both encouraged me and kind of made me skeptical of what this team could do, which is why I think probably middle of the pack is very fair at this moment. If you look at the AAC, I think it's a very much a clear top three: Tulane, UTSA, SMU. Memphis is probably the fourth best team, and they were voted the fourth best team. And then after that, I think it's very much wide open between FAU, ECU, North UNT, and you go down the list of whether it's UAB or whatnot. But yeah, it's going to be real interesting this year finding out, what Temple is, and we know kind of about ECU because they're seemingly competitive with like NC State and stuff every year, but still ECU, Memphis, seeing them in conference is a very different approach to the year. So I think seventh is fair. Like I said, I could see them anywhere between 5 and like 9, and so I'm cool with seventh, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a 7-win game with this schedule or 7-win season with this schedule would be, the fan of me, if you offered that to take that or just play the odds and see what happens, I think I might take the 7 wins just to, if you look at the schedule, it's pretty, pretty aggressive towards the end of it.
Yeah.
My thing is, there's so many unknowns as far as QB. I think we all think Rodgers is going to be the guy, and assuming he is, we haven't seen him in a game, so I think we're going to learn. A lot after the first 2 drives against Cal. But currently, speaking of Cal, I want to say they're 8-point favorites. I think the spread is 8. I think it came
Yeah.
down. Do you like Cal to cover that? Or what are your thoughts there on the spread for 8 points?
Just generally looking at an 8-point spread, it's obviously you're an underdog, but that's not as significant as other games. Like for instance, UTSA played Texas last year, right? And they're going to play Tennessee this year. So like we're not in that stratosphere. We're not in the SEC stratosphere. We're at Cal, and Cal is A, coming to Denton, but B, they're not this juggernaut program here. They're very much bottom of the Pac-12 tier. So, and that's what I think I've said it before. It's like that's what Wren and Jared Mosley kind of planned when they put this schedule together, however many years ago. It's like we have FAU, La Tech, ACU, and obviously the whole flipping of conferences changed this completely. But the California was still on the schedule years ago. The thought process of having Cal on the schedule is that if we are good enough, there is a chance that we win that game, and then we're potentially like undefeated in non-conference play. And I love that. I love that about the schedule because it's La Tech's not going to be a pushover, as we know. FIU and ACU should be fine. North Texas should be. So you're looking at 2 games that are winnable and 2 games that are cakewalks. So there's a chance they're 4-0. And then you get the conference schedule, which you don't have any control over, but it works out to where you have Navy, Temple, two teams that um, Navy's on the road, so maybe I don't know if North Texas will be favored for that, but let's just say two teams that North Texas could be potentially favored against. That's before getting to the back half of the schedule that we've talked plenty about. But the first 6 games on the schedule, I love.
Okay, well, while we're still on the schedule, so starting on October 21st, it goes Tulane, then Memphis, UTSA, then SMU. Okay, out of those four, what does North Texas go?
The home games are UTSA and Memphis. Tulane, I Tulane won't be as good as last year nearly, but they're still going to be very, very tough at home. I don't see Tulane, and as much as I would love North Texas to beat SMU at this moment, I think they're a year or two away from being on that level as far as recruiting goes and being consistent. This is very much a startup for North Texas. I don't want people to forget that. This is a first year, even though the cupboard wasn't bare for Eric Morris. It's very much a process of filling out a roster to compete with SMU and Tulane. So I have Tulane and SMU as losses. UTSA, we're gonna have to see. I think UTSA is gonna be really good, but I don't think they're gonna be as good as last year. And that's still a very good team, but I'm interested to see how that goes. I think Memphis is that's the game. That's the game you got to win. That's the one that determines if you go like you said 7-5 or 8-4 potentially, or you're 6-6 and 5-7, like somewhere in that. That feels like a swing game. I'll say 1-3 in that stretch with the win over Memphis, just being kind of safe. I feel like right now.
Yeah. Are you concerned there's going to be any unfair expectations like from the fan base for Coach Morris's first year, being that as much as everyone complained about Luttrell, obviously whenever he's not there, memory will probably not serve to be the best. And then maybe they'll make the case of, okay, we went to a CUSA championship and we lost, da 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 da. At the end of the year, I think we were still 7-7 though. But do you feel like there's any concern for Morris's first year, being that it's a pretty significant jump in competition, and there's a loss of production, which we'll get into here in a sec. But if he goes, this year, if it's a 4-8 year, do you feel like there's going to be some fans, oh, well, what did we were better off with Luttrell? Or do you feel like maybe the fan base is mature enough to take a 4-8 year with the bigger picture at play?
It's hard because a 4-8 year or even a 5-7 year, I think wouldn't be a disaster, but it would be disappointing not to make a bowl this year, because as hard as I think the schedule is, you're still looking at FIU, La Tech, ACU, Navy as a stretch, as a 4-game stretch there. Like if you don't win 3 of those games, it's probably disappointing because you know what's coming in the back end. And if North Texas does lose that 4-game stretch that we talked about, that's 4 losses right there. And then you still have Tulsa and UAB on the schedule. Like the losses can stack up in a hurry if this team isn't prepared. But I do think year one, Eric Morris, I'm giving them very much leeway of going 5-7 if that does happen. Like we'll have to see how it plays out. We'll have to see how Chandler Rogers does. There are things we can learn from this year, but a 5-7 year for me won't cause me to set anything on fire. I don't think 4-8 is an interesting one, because I don't like that would really shock me if this team went 4-8, just because I look at FIU and ACU on the schedule as 2 free wins. Navy, Temple, I think one of those is a win. That's 3 right there. La Tech, and then you get to like Tulsa, to UAB, who I don't think is going to be great this year. I just think there's a path to at least 5 wins this year. So put me in that 5-7 range pretty comfortably with this team.
Speaking on production loss, so you recently had Reed Smith on your podcast, and he mentioned the ESPN article of where, I don't know what he said, maybe 5th in the nation for returning production. I can't remember.
High. Yeah.
Yeah, it was up there. Maybe not quite 5th, but it was up there. Him and I talked about that as well, and he kind of elaborated a little bit more, saying we're returning, I think it was like 70% of production, according to that ESPN article. Maybe I'm misquoting it, but it was something fairly outlandish. But the production that we are losing defensively, at least, is Gaddy, Nixon, Cam Robertson, who was like first team, whatever he was, all freshman,
Freshman, I think it was all freshman team, but, yeah, if you look at Robertson's stats, though, I don't think they were staggering, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I mean, they weren't staggering, but to lose,
He's a player.
yeah, yeah, to lose a guy to SMU,
Yeah.
who's probably on the rise is tough. And then offensively, you lose Shorter, Roberts, Gums, and Ani. I don't get where they're getting 70% return. I mean, how much do they think the running backs
The running
did? I
backs.
mean,
Yeah, I was about to
yeah,
say
I
the
mean, were
running
they
back.
lining up at D line and corner, but and throwing passes? But anyway, that's a lot of losses. So my last question to you is, what do you think? And I know you're not around the team as much, back when you were
Mhm.
covering it, boots on the ground style, but just kind of, what you know about Eric Morse and his past, as well as North Texas and their recent past of, running the ball so aggressively. What kind of identity do you think this offense is going to take over for this 2023 season?
I'm really, really excited to watch Eric Morris, work because after obviously what he did at Incarnate Word, I think taking it then to the Pac-12 and being successful there. Obviously, we know he had Patrick Mahomes, quarterbacks coach at Texas Tech. Like this is multiple years of having good quarterback play, and I think he understands the receiver room as much as I like the receiver room. I very much don't love the receiver room. Like this isn't if Jair Shorter was still there, I'd probably love it because you have Shorter, Macklin, and Ward, and so on. But I don't think he has the facilities to quite be as I don't want to say air raid, but like as dynamic of a passing attack as he wants to in the coming years. I think he understands the strength of this team is with the running backs and potentially the offensive line. I think the offensive line is a very, very strong group as well, which we talk about going into a new conference. I think the strength of this team potentially is on the line of scrimmage, like offensive line, defensive line. You have question marks at linebacker, at receiver, tight end, so on and so forth. I think offensive line, defensive line being two of the stronger units on this team bodes really well for them moving forward. But as far as what I expect, like schematically and whatnot, I think it's going to be a lot more spread out than Seth Littrell's offense is. I think that's obvious. I think that the lack of tight end on this team almost forces the hand of Eric Morris to be more versatile with whether that's three receiver, four receiver sets, two running back sets. I think we'll see a lot more of. I think we started seeing that more later in the Latrell era, but a day Ragsdale Attaway, like I think all of them get a lot of carries as far as out of shotgun, backs on both sides of him, and you kind of play from there. So they don't have the tight end depth, but I think we'll see running backs kind of pitch in as blockers out of the backfield more, and we'll see them as more versatile pieces this year than they were used before.
Yep, it'll be interesting. It sure will. Well, all right, Matthew, I really appreciate your time. Guys, if you are subscribed here and you're not already subscribed to Matthew and Colin's podcast, you need to do that. It's the Green Room podcast, and I'll leave a link in the description below. It's podcast U material for North
Yep,
Texas.
podcast you.
That's right.
Here
We
we
gotta
are.
have there's really there can't be another school that has at least G5 that has this many podcasts that are
Yeah,
this good.
yeah, that
Um
is consistent. This good. Yeah, I don't know.
exactly.
Between yeah, Go Mean
Um
Green, you, me, that's all of them.
yeah, there's Mean Green, there's so many of
There's
them, but
more.
yeah,
Mean Green
yeah.
Show, all them.
Oh yeah. But all right, Matthew. Well, thank you so much. As always, go Mean Green.